Welcome top news today.
The leaders of Southeast Asia's Muslim-majority nations must walk a delicate diplomatic tightrope, observers say, as they balance cozy Washington ties and intense domestic pressure to push back harder against President Donald Trump for his recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak and Indonesian President Joko Widodo this week joined the chorus of Muslim leaders slamming the move. But signs that they continue to have an eye on being in Trump's good books, in part as a counterbalance to China, could prove costly because of the resonance the Palestinian cause has with their political bases. As was the case in the aftermath of Trump's controversial January decision to seal off American borders to citizens of 7 Muslim-majority countries, the leader's criticism was sharply nuanced and did not directly target the U.S. president. While Widodo has so far escaped criticism, the Malaysian leader has not been so lucky. Within hours of Najib's speech on Wednesday against the U.S. move at the emergency summit of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation (OIC), he faced stinging criticism for his hedging tactics. The Malaysian premier had flayed Washington for adding fuel to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, but Fahmi Fadzol, a spokesman for the opposition People's Justice Party, said the leader's words belied a hypocritical stance towards Trump. Why does the ruling party oppose the U.S. stand on Bait al-Maqdis Jerusalem but still want to invest billions of dollars in the U.S. economy? Asked Fahmi in a note on the Malaysia Kini website. The government needs to be consistent. Don't gather in front of the U.S. Embassy but at the same time go to the White House bringing investments, he said. Najib announced during an official visit to Washington in September that the state pension fund would invest up to $4 billion in Trump's master plan to overhaul American infrastructure. Elsewhere, Mahathir Mohamad, the former prime minister who now leads the opposition coalition, in a protest rally late on Friday branded Trump an international bully and villain. Arsonist in the House. Trump shows cynicism on Jerusalem. The comments by the 92-year-old Mahathir, renowned for his anti-Israel stance, stood in stark contrast to Najib's decision not to take on Trump more directly at the Istanbul summit. Najib's measured stance mirrored those of Widodo and Gulf leaders. Peter Mandeville, a former advisor on political Islam at the U.S. State Department, said the cautious approach towards criticizing Trump at the OIC summit reflected a pattern of action that began with the Muslim ban earlier this year. I think major Muslim leaders in both the Middle East and Asia have decided they are willing to tolerate a lot of Islamophobia and unilateralism on the part of the United States so long as Washington takes a tough line with Tehran and Beijing, said the professor of international affairs at George Mason University. Najib and Widodo were signatories to the summit's final communique that called Trump's move a deliberate undermining of all peace efforts, an impetus for extremism and terrorism, and a threat to international peace and security. The statement did not agree on concrete sanctions against Israel and the U.S., and did not contain the fierce rhetoric of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who in his speech at the summit assailed Trump for having a Zionist mentality. Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel was a departure from American foreign policy in the years since the 1980 declaration by Tel Aviv that the Holy City would be its eternal and indivisible capital. Trump's vanishing act a metaphor for the U.S. in Asia? Israel seized and annexed the eastern part of Jerusalem in the 1967 Middle East War, but much of the international community has not recognized that move. Palestinians hope to establish a sovereign state in the West Bank and Gaza, controlled by Hamas, with East Jerusalem as its capital. Najib said after the summit that he hoped to take a moderate approach in dealing with the U.S. move, and dismissed calls for restrictions in trade and investment between the two countries. With geopolitics on the leaders' minds, experts said they did not expect a shift in stance anytime soon. The U.S. is Indonesia's second-largest trading partner after China, and Malaysia's third-largest. Foreign policy is multifaceted, multi-track, and multi-directional, and so it is entirely possible to champion the Palestine cause on the one